Ready?
Everyone has a unique gift, and Mike, the creator of the 1NELife podcast, believes most people don't know how to use their gifts or what they are. Mike wants you to see things from a different perspective and be true to yourself. The 1NELife podcast unites the world through art, fashion, music, and film. It inspires, motivates, and creates positive energy, love, and compassion to all communities and creates an equal playing field for all. On the 1NELife podcast, they cover topics like building relationships, overcoming adversity, habits of healthy people, and much, much more. We only have one life to live. Be yourself and live your truth. Add the 1NELife podcast to your playlist. That's the number 1NELife. Available on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, and your favorite podcast platform.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to 1NELife podcast. I am Mike MIC Reed, and as always, I got my lovely co-host Tanya Rincon in the building with me. How you doing today?
Hi.
I love your energy today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm feeling
so bright and happy.
Yes, I do feel better today.
Amazing.
It's a good day. Mm-hmm.
I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
'Cause I feel it.
Thank you.
It makes me want to just scream and shout. We also have with us our. I know that's why I was referencing it. Oh, you trying to say how old?
No,
you cracking
it's a
jokes
little
now?
old. Let's be honest.
Wow.
It's a blessing to be old.
Wow. So you really are saying I'm older. Wow. See how she cleaned that up? Older. Wow. Anyways, we have our Capster classmates with us, Elvia and Tamiko from Valley Oasis with us. How are you guys ladies doing?
We're doing well.
Yes.
Excited.
Excited?
I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited because you ladies are a pillar in our class. And I look forward to our on-sites all the time and listening to you guys' story and just you guys speaking. Because when you guys speak, you guys really speak from the heart. And that's what I'm all about. That's why I just mentioned it earlier. Like, I'm very raw and authentic. Because you can feel that energy, right? That's why I tell people, like, I have no script when I do these shows. Like, because I want people, my shows are evergreen. So when people listen to them, like, they have to feel it. And every time I listen to you ladies speak in class, like, it's always from the heart. Like, it's just straight raw. And I always feel it. Mm-hmm. I think that's important when you speak, and especially doing stuff like this.
Agreed.
Because you want people to connect with you.
Definitely.
And they can't connect with something that you're reading off a piece of paper and all that. They know it's fake.
You're right.
Yeah.
People know fake. But I don't understand why a lot of people always try to be fake. Like, you can feel it, right?
I don't
Some people
know.
are good
I mean,
at
I
it.
think that's what we're kind of going to go into today. That, we can get it confused.
Agreed. Yeah.
We can get it confused. What? Fakeness?
Yeah, we know we believe that something is the way that it is and the way that it's portrayed in the beginning, especially, or we sometimes, choose to ignore the little red flags that might not be so little. And
Agreed.
so it does take time and practice. Maybe, I don't know, maybe
No, and
you
know
just
what?
have a gift, but
No, that's because ever since I've been doing like meditation and mindset training, I've been doing it 5-6 years now, I think. I'm just more in tune with energy.
Okay.
And I think when you're in tune with your own energy, you feel other people's energy. So you can kind of, like, I can walk into a room and I can feel people's energy.
That is true.
And I've heard other people say that. Like, so when you're in tune with your own energy, you feel it,
it
like,
is
immediately.
yeah, it is that being like aware.
Yeah,
you have
awareness.
to be aware.
Yes.
Yeah, so, anyways, I had a question for you, ladies, because you guys just did an event on domestic violence, right?
Yes.
And what's Purple Day?
Purple Day is a day where
'Cause I
community
know-
members, community partners, advocates, people around the world that are actually celebrating or bringing awareness to domestic violence. It's the day that everybody wears purple to show solidarity for the cause.
So that's why everybody had on Purple today.
Yes.
So is today Purple Day?
No. Actually, yesterday.
Yesterday was.
Purple Day.
Okay, I like that.
I didn't get the memo.
I know you and all black.
You too.
I always wear black.
Same.
So I was able to come to your event today, catch the tail end of it, and I was very impressed just by the turnout, and I was able to listen to a few stories, and actually saw a few people in there I actually knew, which was incredible and great. So tell us what the event was about.
It is our DV Courage event. So for those that don't know, Valley Oasis has been in operation for 42 plus years. And we operate a emergency DV shelter alongside many, I think Lisa Dawson mentioned 17 programs under the trauma side in itself. So we have our sexual assault response services department. We have our CalWorks department that, provides classes and legal services and additional life skill training for survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault and even human trafficking. Excuse me. And we also have our homeless services portion of our agency. But today we focus mainly on the trauma since it is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we wanted to bring awareness in a different way. We have a REV event, which is Ride to End Violence. And we have the bikers come out, we have our car clubs come out, and it's more of a community event to just, actually promote or it's a fundraiser, thank you. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to bring some type of awareness to our Antelope Valley, which will show survivor stories, talk about domestic violence, talk about policy, the mental health effects of domestic violence. I wanted to bring that all in one place and also take the time to highlight our community partners and show solidarity so that we can work together in the near future to bring a bigger impact to the DV world.
And it was all done through the lens of survivors.
Yes.
Right, yeah, I noticed that. You had a nice panel out there.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Actually, one of your panelists up there, Cynthia, like she's a good friend of mine.
Okay.
And so afterwards, I went up to her, and I know her story with her daughter and her grandson, and but I didn't know her domestic violence story. And I was just like, wow, you are a survivor of many things. And but I would have never known that. No. Like she's so strong.
Yes.
And there's so many of us that are in this field that we don't share our story, but we do it because we have so many personal ties to it. Mm-hmm. And so you just never know going into these kind of events who you're going to find that is a survivor. Right. I think that was very impactful today to see how many more survivors there are in that room that are giving back to our community, that are about the survivors. Right. And just making it about them and raising that awareness. So that was beautiful to see today.
No, right. And you know what? So I think it was last month I went to a suicide prevention screening that our classmate Jacqueline did, right? Yeah. And James Combs, he was there speaking on the panel, right? And he pointed something out at that event because have you guys seen the screening? The movie?
No, I haven't, unfortunately.
Of the S Word? It's truly amazing. Like I watched it. It was really amazing.
I think it's on Prime.
Yeah, it is. Oh. Sorry. It is. It is.
It's called the S Word.
Yeah, the S Word. Yeah. Okay. You should watch it. It's truly amazing. But the one thing that he pointed out that day on the panel was, he said most people minimize people that work in the mental health space and think we have it all together. And one of the people in the film that actually committed suicide was a suicide prevention counselor. And so that's why he wanted to bring it out that day and speak like, look, just because we're in this space, don't think we all have it together. Like we all have a story. We all have some type of mental health, background. And it spoke to me because of my story, right? Of mental health and all the, the suicidal thoughts and, from my mother, being murdered in front of me and all that. Like, I'm in this space, but people don't, and they see me out in the street like, oh, Mike, you do so positive stuff. You're always happy. And it's like, yeah, you guys see that, but you guys don't see me at home. Right. When I'm in my backyard, like just sitting by myself and going through it. Like, they don't see that. So I resonate with what you just said about,
Yeah, it's about struggling
well
every day.
Right.
Yeah, and I feel like the more that we talk about it and the more open we are in events like this, that brings the people up and just saying, I battled this and I also did this, and just being more open really creates that, we talk about it in classes, psychological safety area, zone, and you build that trust, without even really trying. It kind of becomes a little bit easier little by little. And even if it is still not that easy, it's, maybe somebody else just needed to hear it, or maybe it's going to maybe in 5 years or 2 years or 10 years, you know, you never
Right.
know, down the line they'll look back and
And that's
about
why
that
I
moment.
always say that's why I kind of created this, because before I did this show years ago, I used to just watch YouTube videos and like, you know, inspirational stuff, and I would hear people's stories, and that really helped me, because most people, they feel shamed or, you know, embarrassed to have these conversations, right? And even though we continue to tell people like, hey, talk to somebody, it's hard. Right, so you go on the internet and YouTube and all that, and you try to find a story that you can connect with, and that's what's important about why I do what I do. What I love about what I do is because I don't know, like Tanya just said, in 5-10 years, somebody might listen to this show
Absolutely.
and be able to connect with it, and it might save their life. It might help them, you know, in some type of way.
oh, it
you know?
definitely will.
Right.
Definitely.
So you just never know, and that's why I encourage people to tell their story. That's why my show, you know, the tagline is called "It's Your Story," because I want people to tell their story. And I know it's hard, but at some point, I want to get everybody's story out there.
Absolutely.
And I feel like it's like this big weight that's lifted off once you tell it.
Yeah, and people don't know that about that feeling, and so
Right.
when I do share that with people, and you know, talking to the youth, and they're just like, I just want to stay in my zone, my bubble. I don't like talking to people. I don't like people. I don't want to socialize. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to do this. And then it's like, look, I need you to know and trust me, believe me. I promise you, it's going to feel so much better. You're going to feel different. And the thing is that they have never experienced that.
Right.
So it's like they're seeing a whole new color for the first time, you know? And so
Agreed.
the more that we really talk about it and just be like, I've been there, and share that, I feel like it really creates that curiosity in them. Like, maybe, you know, it just
Right.
helps. It does help.
No, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And knowing that somebody cares too was a
Yeah.
big thing for me. Seeing like these resources, these organizations like you guys, and going out in the community. Because a lot of people might say like, nobody cares, nobody's doing anything. And it's like, I've been seeing more and more of these organizations, and maybe sometimes it's like, you know, it's not the turnout that we thought. It was a few people, but hey, it's
Somebody.
Something, yeah.
one
There, somebody will
was
hear
there.
it.
one
Right.
person can make such a difference. You know, Martin Luther King was one person, is
Right.
what I always say.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was one of the concerns that we had, of course, with this event. This was the very first event that we've planned together. And we constantly were talking about, like, how many people are going to show up?
nervous.
Right.
And when we put it on Eventbrite, and we were seeing at first, like, no tickets were being sold. And then out of nowhere, it just went
I just got
crazy.
chills.
And
Right.
then yesterday, Tarika was getting calls. People were just like, hey, can I bring so-and-so? Can I bring more people? And so we were like, oh my gosh, now we've overbooked.
Right.
Oh,
So we
that's
were like, that's amazing. Even if it
Yeah.
had just been that one person that showed up, but just seeing 100, we ended up getting 126 people on our list. So
Wow.
we were like, well,
It's amazing.
now all
Yeah.
those people got to hear
Yeah.
the beautiful stories that were shared today. And
And I love the support you guys got from the city, from the council members, you know, all the
Yes.
different organizations. Like, they actually showed up.
It was awesome to see everybody in one place,
Yeah, and it's
especially when it comes to victim service providers, to see everybody, because there's a lot of people
Right.
that are off doing their own things. A lot of more mom and pop style nonprofits that, you know, if you weren't connected, you wouldn't really know that they are doing the work.
Right.
Yeah.
So there was one in particular I would chase down with an email, try to call her, trying to make the connection, because I
got it.
saw the work that she was doing or is doing. And all of a sudden, I get a call from her about 2 weeks before the event. She was like, I heard you're looking for me. And I'm like, yeah, I've been trying to reach you for months. I said, I was about to pop up at your door and be like, hey, I need to talk to you. But that was
talked
I
about
love
wonderful.
that. You need to. I mean, I think I talked about that on the last show we did, is like, these people are busy.
Yes.
Things fall through the cracks. You cannot give up. If you need to go in person, set up that meeting, like, do not give up.
Yeah. I had to
So
put my
that's
ego to the
great.
side, because at first I was
Yeah.
offended, like, she's not responding. But
I
I had
used-
to realize, like you said, she is busy. She is a one-woman show running multiple programs, not by herself. She has a team, but
Right.
ultimately it's her
Led by
vision and her. So I had to respect that and put my pride to the side for the bigger picture. And look what happened. Look what transpired out of that.
But you know what? I also had to learn, and I just learned this, right? Like, in this space that we're all in right now, the mental health space, that we help people, right? Obviously, we're caring people, and I've been doing this for years, like without even being in the space I was doing it. But I never used to give myself grace, or I never used to know how to fill my cup back up, right? So now, the more I do these shows and the more I talk to people and, allow people to call me and have these conversations, like for instance, yesterday I was on the phone with two people that called me and were just like, hey, I need to talk. And I was like, okay, cool. But last night, and I think I even talked to you afterwards, and I was like, you know what, I'm feeling a little down. Because, and I took the break to go in my backyard, because I always go in my backyard, have my little wine and smoke my cigars, right? And that was just me filling my cup back up.
Okay.
And I didn't want to talk to nobody. Like, I just wanted to be there for an hour just to kind of like decompress, right? Because it's a lot of energy. So good. My point to that is, a lot of people that don't get back to us sometimes, like my ego gets involved sometimes, like, damn, dude, I've been trying to reach you, right? Mm-hmm. But it's like, I gotta be mindful, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe they're refilling their cup right now. So we got to give them a minute.
Yeah, I feel like I learned that too. I'm in the PTA, and so I'm really involved in my kid's school. So when she started going to school, I was like, I want to know everything. That I was that parent. And so I was like, what's in her food? I mean, just everything. Like, why are they only eating for 20 minutes? Or, and just the whole process. But I feel like some parents, people, are intimidated because it's like, it's this big organization, or there's no really step-by-step on how to do it, or who to go to. But there was a lot of times where I wouldn't get emails back or calls back, and I just never really gave up. And I developed a relationship, thankfully, with the principal, and she connected me to the groups, and it was a little bit easier, but it did take a long time, and it's still an ongoing thing to kind of nudge them a little bit and put that into their just think about it. But yeah, don't give up, don't get discouraged, and you might just be planting a seed, and it might take some time to grow. And the other thing that I did want to say is, it's you were saying that not a lot of people were signing up in the beginning, but you guys are the only ones that, I mentioned it to you earlier, the only domestic violence center right now in the Antelope Valley.
Yeah, we're the only domestic violence shelter in the Antelope Valley.
Right. And so I feel like, it is good to know, because some people don't know, and even it's the only one, and some people are like, what's that? And so I definitely spread the word, and just do our part in spreading and sharing. And so I have no doubt that the next event is going to be even bigger.
Yeah, and you know what? At the event, there was a young lady. She gave me her business card, and she was asking me how long we've been in the community. And she was telling me her story, and if I'm not mistaken, she said that she was fleeing DV back in 2009. She's like, I wish you had been here. I was like, well, we've been here. Yeah. Wow. We've been here in the Antelope Valley, and that just goes to show, we are definitely needing to still continue to spread the word on Valley Oasis is here. We're doing domestic violence services, and we're a shelter, and we're here.
And I know since you guys are the only ones, you guys are swamped, and so sometimes it's like we're doing everything we can, and and it's still not enough, because there is a need. So,
but that's why we got to keep the conversation going,
and not in a bad way, in a good way,
in a good way, absolutely.
And absolutely, most people don't even realize that they're in a domestic violence situation. Like the last lady with the book, Married in Police Brutality, how she was saying, like, she was being manipulative, and it was her son. It was like, he's doing that on purpose.
Absolutely.
Like, she had to, like, like most people don't even know, because it's not always physical; it's mental too.
Absolutely. And
that's where I think that's where it starts, right? It starts with mental.
So it depends on the situation, because every situation is a little different. Right. But to speak to not knowing that you're in a situation, if I could disclose for myself, I am a survivor of domestic violence. And I was working at a retail store when I was in my situation. And I guess my manager at the time realized and started seeing things when I would pop up with bruises, crying, telling her that my things were broken, my house was kicked in, my front door was kicked in, my windows were busted. And so one day she handed me a pamphlet, and she said, I want you to read this. And the pamphlet asked, like, it mentioned are you being controlled? Are you isolated? All the questions were speaking to the signs of domestic violence. And I didn't realize it. And we talk about culture and how we're raised. I didn't know. I figured if I was not running behind doors and locking them to get away from him, that I wasn't in domestic violence. I figured if I tried to protect myself, that we're fighting. Even though I wasn't winning the battle. But I felt like, okay, as long as I'm not running away from this man, that I am not like those women you see on TV. And it wasn't until I got that pamphlet that I read it, and I was like, wow. So each of us get an opportunity to have that aha moment. And if we speak about that, that was mine. I'm like, this isn't healthy. This isn't right. I shouldn't be called 20 times in a row. I shouldn't be asked, where are you going? I shouldn't have my partner telling me who I can be with. I shouldn't have to hear the negative comments about myself. It's not normal. I was thinking, okay, he just loves me so much that it makes him crazy. And I think culturally, when it comes to music, entertainment, it can bring up a misconception of what love is. And even in music, you hear it, and it's like, no, the kids need to know. Those are warning signs. If somebody's controlling what you're wearing, where you're going, who you're with, run. So.
And the thing is that sometimes, like, I've spoken with somebody, and she was like, I don't understand. He used to do all of these things for me. He wouldn't let me go anywhere. And, he wouldn't let me get out the car by myself. And he was calling me all the time. But I was a little bit confused where she was going with that, and then I was like, okay, do you see that as love? And she was like, yeah. So she thought that was love. And some people, because they haven't seen anything else,
yes.
Her family, really bad background. Like, I think dad was in jail, mom was abusive, or vice versa, or something. It was a really bad situation. So to her, him being overprotective and doing those things, and don't look at that other guy because you're only supposed to look at me. That's like love to her. And so and sometimes people don't even know what domestic violence is, and I've asked a lot of people, have you been in a domestic violence situation? And literally they'll be like, what's that? So it's like, we really just have to speak about it more, educate people. And like you said, sometimes like we don't even know.
Right.
Like, so I was in a domestic violence situation. I actually went to jail for it. And it wasn't until I went to jail that I realized what was going on. So my wife, who I'm currently married to, I'm actually in the middle of a divorce right now. But in the beginning, her family even told me not to marry her, which is crazy.
Warning sign.
Red flag.
Right.
Yes.
Wow. You ignored it.
No, right. But I was
You weren't
the
doing
type.
meditation then, right?
No, I wasn't. But I was the type of guy that, like, when I met her, I knew her story because she was physically abused by her parents and her dad since a young age, right? And I want to help because we had similar kind of backgrounds, right? So I was there to help her. I kind of showed her a new love, even like with her, baby daddy and her other relationships, they all abused her. So here I come and was like trying to be, the savior. And I showed her a different life, which I did. But her family was kind of warning me like, hey, be careful because she goes back and forth, right? And I didn't realize that until maybe 3 years in, and we started getting into arguments and all that. But it wasn't like, but she was controlling me. And that's what I didn't see. Like, I would always tiptoe around the house, or like when I came home, I was like, dang, I can't say this to her because I know how she's going to react.
Yes.
Like, you know what I'm saying? And for years I did that, but I didn't realize like how it was affecting me until one day, like we just got into this real heated argument, and, and I'm not trying to minimize, I did put hands on her, but I was trying to leave the apartment and she wouldn't let me leave. So I just kind of threw her out my way. And, obviously she called the police. But at the end of the day, when we went to court, my attorney, talked to her, and, he brought up her previous past where she went to jail on, striking her ex-boyfriend and all this. And, she eventually dropped the case. But, I had to realize that, dang, for years she was actually manipulating me. But it taught me a lesson. It taught me how to never put myself in that type of situation. Like now, and it takes a lot, to be honest with you, for me to get violent. Like for me to get violent, like you would have to really push my buttons. And she was that type of person, just always in my face. Wouldn't let me move. Like I was trying to go left, she went left. Like, what I'm saying? It was like on purpose, right? Mm-hmm. But my point to it is like I had to learn. Nowadays, you would never see me arguing with anybody. I know how to walk away.
That's control. That's ultimate control. When you
like
can control that,
yeah.
Wow.
Like if someone just a little bit tries to argue with me, I'm like, you know what? Today is not a good day. Let's talk tomorrow.
I like that.
That's a wonderful technique.
No, right.
Because people know how to push your buttons.
They do.
It's a
And that's the
tactic.
thing. And when you allow someone to push your buttons, then you got to take a responsibility and accountability for your actions. So, and I did. Like I said, I put my hands on her. I pushed her out, threw her out of my way, which I shouldn't have did, but I allowed her to put me in that situation. So when I got out of jail, and I was only in jail for like 8 hours. Like I bailed out. It cost me a lot of money. That's what I'm saying. Like it's not worth it. Like, it really wasn't worth it. But my point is like I learned that never let someone control me like that.
Yeah, I think that's really important, is being self-aware. And even though that other person is in the wrong, like we can't control them.
Right.
We can't change them. We can't even don't even try reasoning with that person,
Right.
because one conversation isn't going to help. No. Two, maybe 10, they might never ever change. So yeah, and just really, like you said, taking accountability and just saying like, I need to own up to how I react to this situation and how it affects me. But also, you shared the story with me, and we talked about it because it's not the first time that it's happened to guys, because it's like, oh, well, you're the guy, you probably whatever. And you said you had to get a lawyer in order to get it dropped. But imagine people don't have the money to get a lawyer. Mm-hmm. People don't have that. And also it gives people a bad name, like, oh, we're not going to believe other people now if it happens in the future. And so that's why it's so hard
Stays
sometimes.
On your record.
Yeah.
And I actually had a friend, cause we did talk about this the other day. I actually had a friend who spent 5 years in prison because some girl lied. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I grew up with this dude, and it's like
he couldn't get a lawyer.
He couldn't afford an attorney like me. You know what I mean? It was so sad because people do manipulate situations, and not to minimize, like I know women have it the worst. Right, I 100% know that, but it's still from the male perspective, I guess. It's like I see it, and because I've been through it, and it's like, wow, I think I was having a conversation last night with somebody. It's like it's really not gender related. Like I had a friend of mine who was saying, "Oh, men are all blah blah blah," and I was like, "It's not gender. Like I wish we would stop using gender and race. People use that so much. Oh, the Mexican, the black people, the white people, because she's white, she's black. Whatever. It's like it's not race related. It's not gender related. It's just ignorant people.
Cannot generalize it.
Right.
There's actually there was a study that came out that said that same sex partner. It's really domestic violence is high in same partner of relationships. Actually, they just did a study, and they were like, "Wow," and I guess it's just and it's mostly like women and women. There's a lot. I think it's like 80%,
right?
Or
and
something.
so that proves my point, right? Like it's not race related, it's not gender related. It's people. We have to learn how to control ourselves. We have to get, like how Tamika, you were saying earlier, from the stigma from the man standpoint about being tough and like, because that's how I was raised, right? And I can admit it, like, but I've done my therapy and I've done everything, so I know how to get out of conversations, like arguments now. Like I just walk away from it because this is not worth it. And if you think about it, all the arguments that we've ever had in the past, like think about how like they wasn't worth it, right? Like I was really arguing about that. Like I really let this person put me in that space over that.
Yeah.
Like it's petty, right? Like oh my God, like
at the end of it,
can't even get that time of our life back.
Or
right?
you're like, wait, what were we arguing about?
Yeah, like really.
Yeah,
like,
looking back, you don't even remember what
You're
the
like, oh my God,
conversation was
it
about,
it was
but you were mad.
So not worth it sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I remember, like the day I kicked my ex-wife out to the house, we're arguing over milk. Like really, milk?
Yeah.
A carton of fucking milk.
I remember getting
really.
an argument about.
I spent 3 hours in that morning trying to get ready for work, but I'm arguing over milk.
Yeah.
Like,
I remember a recent one was, can you go to Target? Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have a question.
Yes.
I would like to ask, what would you guys see as one of, or like one or two, whatever you guys think is one of the main things that you guys see that lead to like a success story and seeing people come out of that victim mentality into a survivor?
The healing. First, I believe to begin to heal, you have to take accountability, you know, and give yourself grace for what happened. And when you take accountability, it is freeing because we all have a choice.
right.
I remember when I received my first slap from my abuser. When I went to the bathroom, I looked in the mirror, and that voice that I heard from my mother playing in my head, if somebody hits you once, they'll do it again. At that moment, I had a choice.
Right.
And I decided, oh, but I love him. Let me give him a chance. So I have to take accountability for myself to say, okay, you were told, you were warned, but you didn't value yourself enough to say, I am better than this. You don't deserve this. I was looking for love in the wrong places. So for myself, being accountable, and when we talk about well-being, forgiving of ourself, the action, being able to release what happened and say, okay, it was a part of my life, but it's not me.
Right.
So you can actually flip that. You can either take that and release it, or either you can be empowered by it and say, I went through that, I learned that, but at the end of it, I survived that. Now I'm going to take that power back and tell the next person about it, which I think I've done.
I think you
Probably
did.
many times.
I mean, I think that was proven today at your event. How many
you.
people, when they mentioned your
100%.
name, you got a standing ovation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That spoke volumes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that, though. No, thank you for putting on that event and bringing the awareness to it.
Thank you. I was so, you know, I honestly, I told God, I said, okay, it's your event. You gave me the vision. I am just an operating vessel in this. And so when I would come in myself and start thinking, okay, the tickets aren't selling, I would get nervous. And I'm like, okay, the agency's riding on this. Here they are trusting my vision. And they're giving the title first annual to it, which let me know they're believing in me. They're believing. But at that moment, the negative self-talk came in, and I was like, you're not good enough. You're not going to produce. I started thinking of all the negative things, and when the numbers on the tickets weren't rising, I'm like, what are we going to do? And then eventually one day I looked at it, and it was like less than 20 seats left, and we were like, what? And then the next morning, it was sold out. So I'm still sitting. I feel like I'm high.
Yeah.
I'm on it right now. Like I'm like floating. I'm really trying to take it all in. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see where we're going to go forward with this.
I'm super excited too.
This brought so many people to the table, and people that you didn't know in positions were in a place of being transparent and sharing their story. It was such a safe place where people were welcome. They were invited to be their authentic self. They were taking up space, and I saw that all around, not just in the survivors that told their stories, but the people that do the work too.
Right.
So I'm riding on cloud 9 right now.
Yeah, and it's common, right, to see people that are working in that field. It's because it's so close and like dear to them in some way, and it does touch on so many parts to so many people, because like you said, the healing journey, everybody's going through their own journey in one way or another, and it comes from like you said, that confidence, like, you know, you have that negative self-talk, and so we're constantly in different situations too. You know, I always talk about this, I think on every show, is the self-talk, the confidence, you know, and even if, let's say, it didn't work, like I would have, you know, hope that you wouldn't have given up, because it's something that's so needed. So, and you know, it's a party jitters. It's always like, you're always like, who's going to come? Who's going to make it's hard, you know, but I'm so glad and so happy for you to hear your success.
And I was happy to see quite a bit men there.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, because like I'm such an advocate, and afterwards I was talking to James about this. I'm actually going to have him on the show because I want more men to get involved in this mental health space and even with domestic violence, because they got to realize, like you said, and take accountability, like how I did. Like, you know, I understand where my anger used to come from, and how, you know, I was a part of the whole stigma about being hard and, you know, all that. And no one wins.
No.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, and we have to, one, like you said, take accountability and learn from that. You know, I'm so grateful that, you know, the way I was brought up and everything with my whole story. I'm one, surprised that I'm still here. I'm honestly, I'm grateful that I'm here, but I'm surprised that God got me through a bunch of shit that I shouldn't.
I feel you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your transparency, Mike.
Yeah.
I think that's with everybody.
That's why we need a lot of the male
No,
perspective.
no, not, I
need it.
shouldn't be here. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like the shit I've been through.
I'm
But
right
that's
there
why,
with
like
you.
today, I wish I would have been there earlier on in the event. But I love seeing it, and I love talking about it. And I think more men need to talk about it and be open about it. I mean, it's the only way we're gonna heal and get better and grow from it.
I actually encountered I went to a specific community partner's gala, and her son came up and told his story. And I wanted to add him to the roster. Unfortunately, we were already jam-packed in our schedule, but I wanted the male perspective there because I think it's so important.
It is.
You know, we need to break down from people thinking it's just a woman thing, because it's
Right.
not. 1 in every 10 males are abused. And we need to highlight that.
It's probably higher because people don't talk about it.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
report it.
They're
Yeah.
not honest about it. Yeah.
Exactly.
I can see that.
Well, now you have 2 already for next year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or maybe it could be semi-annual,
Yeah.
right?
We're going to do projects in between time, like quarterly.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I'm taking names and thinking about it already.
Yeah.
That is probably the next thing, is to talk about the male perspective of domestic violence. That's if somebody doesn't take that idea. Cut that out, Mike.
But no,
Right? NDA.
but you know what? It doesn't even matter if other people do it. More people
That's
need to do it,
true.
because
Yeah.
the more we talk about it, and I talk about this a lot.
A lot.
The more we share and talk about it, the more eyes and ears are on it,
Agreed.
and how it's going to get out, right? Like, I want everybody. I mean, this mental health thing is so real. I think we all are learning that and starting to really see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I wanted to add a piece to the whole healing journey. There's also something there about forgiveness. Not forgiveness for the abuser. Forgiveness for yourself.
Absolutely.
That you should have recognized the signs.
yeah.
Ooh, it's the
We
hardest
should
thing.
be okay with forgiving ourselves for not seeing those signs. I am not a survivor of domestic violence. I have a different kind of experience. Can't really see the signs there. Can't really do anything about it there.
Right.
But for those that are survivors of domestic violence, don't hold yourself, don't hold that against yourself for
don't
not
beat yourself up.
recognizing those signs. It's one of those things that you can't heal if you don't forgive yourself first. And you deserve that forgiveness.
No, I mean, you're right, but I think, like what Tamiko was saying, love is a crazy ass thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm telling you, love, it makes you do some crazy
Yeah.
shit.
But that's why I say it's important to forgive
Yeah.
yourself.
But how
Because
do,
love makes you,
And
but how do you recognize that when you are in love and you trying to, like in my situation, like I did see it, so I don't want to say I didn't, but I thought that my love was strong enough to overpower
That's the
it.
hard part.
Right.
That gets you stuck, Mike.
No,
That's
I know.
what gets you stuck.
Because I thought I can do all this and change her and hope her to get to see things my way, and it was like
Yeah,
that
that's-
shit failed.
yeah,
It's a sink-
that's kind of
it's
what
a-
I said. It's like
That's a sinking ship, right?
you can't think that one conversation or that you have that power to change somebody else, and so it's like I love how we're using the word accountability, first of all, because there are 2 in the relationship. And so you can walk away. I mean, we have to. And like you said, the forgiveness and just knowing it's going to be hard and you're not going to be able to forgive yourself in that moment. No. It's going to take maybe days.
It's going to take years, maybe.
Weeks, months, years. Yeah. But, you know, hopefully it won't. And, you know, and talking about it and just really like, you can make it up to yourself, you know, do things for you, focus on you. And so it's like, recognize, you know, is this good for me?
If I can speak to that,
Yes,
I will be 100% about that. When it comes to self-forgiveness, I am bad at that. So I go through my moments, and I feel like mine is a little different. It feels like it's rooted in self-love, though, because now that I know who I am, what I bring to the table, my worth, now it's like, damn, girl, why did you allow that? So it's that, did you not know who you were? Do you not know who you belong to? Do you not know who you were called to be? Somebody that I put on a pedestal is now so small. And at that moment, that person's opinion mattered so much, even more than my own.
right.
I struggle with that because I'm like, the inner person in me or the younger person in me is like, why couldn't you love me more? Why couldn't you see that? So it's that. And even though I tell myself, well, you're here now, look where you are now, look what you're doing now. But it's still like when you come from childhood trauma, I come from a child abuse background. And it's hard to admit it when it comes to culturally, because in my culture, being spanked or talked to a certain way has been accepted, and we know where it stems from, but I thought it was okay. Yeah. I didn't realize I deserved more. Yeah. So I'm always hearing the negative voice from the person that raised me. You're the person that carried me in your stomach. You gave birth to me. So everything that came out of your mouth is like what God would say to us, because that is the first person we see when we come out. Our parents are everything.
And we don't know better.
Right. So I struggle. I'll be honest. I struggle with that, and I have to bring myself back around and say, okay, girl, you're here now. You're out of it. Kids are safe. But I'm still like, the inside of me is like, dang.
That's where community comes in. Yeah. Helping out one another, recognizing that forgiveness is not easy.
And therapy.
Yeah, and therapy. You're right.
I mean, I will say, I have a similar situation, abuse and domestic violence. And, I feel like I'm barely, really telling myself, even though, like you said, the people where I came from and everybody around me in that family or the loved one, their opinion to me was like, oh, well, they see everything that I do and they should know. I don't know. It just becomes like you normalize it, and so it's so hard to really break away from that. But, really like when you do talk about it, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely not going to be like the first conversation you have with somebody where you're going to be like, oh, okay, I'm fixed. It does take some time, but it is that accountability. And it's also that, can they be wrong? Is everything that they're saying 100% true? No, like they're just because they are older, just because they did birth us, just because they are a person that we loved and that sees us doing things doesn't mean that they're all knowing, that they're 100% correct, that their truth is true at all. And so we really do. And, I'm going to come in with the self-talk again and be like, we really have to, pull everything out of us in that moment and be like, this is for me. This is the moment. This is right now where I need to tell myself, like, I'm beautiful and you're amazing and what you're doing is incredible.
You're an amazing job today.
You are wonderful. And, I feel like I barely started seeing that in my life. Like if I didn't go through the abuse, I wouldn't be the mom that I am today. And to me, I would do it 100, 1,000, 1,000,000 times over just to have that moment. Yes. And I'm going to mess up.
Of course.
And it's okay.
But, I think we had this conversation. I think it was with you. It goes back to this book I'm reading called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, right? And I read another book similar to that called The Bradshaw, and it talks about the family systems. And I was just having this conversation, I think it was with you, Tanya, or maybe somebody else, about how, like, I'm not mad at my parents for raising me the way they did, or even my grandmother, because my parents wasn't really there, but because maybe they didn't have the tools or the resources that we have now, right? And I think every generation, like, I know for 100% that I'm way better than my dad.
Oh, me too.
Like, I treated my kids, like the way he treated me, I know 100,000%, million% that I treated my kids way better. And I'm hoping my kids treat their kids better than I treated them. So it's just a growing effect, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not mad. You know, obviously there is some, like, I didn't get along with my dad, and, you know, for a lot of million reasons I can go into, but I'm not mad at him, because I know he probably didn't have the resources that I have now.
Absolutely.
Like the therapy, the CAP class that I'm taking now, that I can apply that to everything, right? And I'm hoping my kids have better resources than I do, right? So it's all about, like I said, the book I'm reading, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Like what you were just speaking about earlier, when we were a baby, everything is given to us. Absolutely. Your name, your views. So, and most adults, they are who someone told them they are. Right. They never found their true selves.
Right.
Yeah. So until you find your true self, and that's what the Bradshaw book is about the we system and the I system. You are part of a we system. Whoever raised you, whether it's your environment, your neighborhood, your parents, your uncles, aunts, whoever it was, you are part of that we system until you break out to become your own I system. And most adults just never found that, because they are who someone told them they are, and they never even explore
thought about it.
Or is around people in the right environment for them to start thinking outside the box. And that's why I think I used to mentor these young group of people before, and I used to tell them, listen, if it takes you breaking away from your family, from your neighborhood, go.
Yeah.
Like, don't feel like you're stuck in your environment, because sometimes your environment is doing the most damage to you. Absolutely. Like, it's okay to leave. Absolutely. I'm not saying leave forever and just never talk to them, but go be yourself. Go find your true self and then come back. Like, I left my family and my environment when I was 14 years old, and I never looked back. I mean, I talked to them, you know, but that's why I can speak on that. Like, but some people, they just don't want to leave their neighborhoods. They don't want to leave their family, because they say, oh no, it's my family, it's my family.
Out of fault.
It's like, oh my God, I wish you knew.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, Mike? I will speak to about my lived experience. I left for college, and in my culture, it's not something that you ever talk about. Like what we experience as children in a Hispanic household, nobody talks about, like, you know, you get whacked with the chancla. You don't think twice about it. Oh, that's just mom being mom, dad being dad. And I left for college, and I'm in my first sociology class, and we're talking about child abuse. And I was sitting there not knowing that I was just learning about my whole life. And I realized what situation I had been in for 18 years. And it was towards the end of that first semester, I was supposed to come back home. I lasted 1 week at my parents' house when I decided I need to get out. I can't be back here, because it was traumatic. It was so much. And I will say, we need to do better as a society in educating our young adults in what child abuse and domestic violence is. It wasn't until then that I knew what type of abuse was going on in my household. There was definitely the child abuse, but there was also the financial and emotional abuse with the parents. So domestic violence was in the household. We just didn't know that. And, you know, my sisters, they went to college too, and they learned this too.
Think about if you didn't go to college.
I know.
How would your life would have,
I was just going to ask you, though, you know, growing up, did you ever feel like something's not right?
I never questioned it.
100%.
And most people don't, because they think it's normal.
Like
they normal, The we system, they're part of that we system. That's what was told to you. So it's like, okay.
Yeah, and when I think back, like, I do think back, and I'm like, how come nobody noticed at school?
Right.
Well, because I had no idea what it was. I wasn't showing. I wasn't telling anyone anything.
And so that's why, you know, we kind of talked about it before the show about the, you know, the curriculum that I really want to bring to the Antelope Valley, where we talk about these things like, are you being treated well? Do you love yourself? Do you feel loved? Do you know what that is? You know, and just being in tune and knowing that you're okay, because sometimes people don't ask us, you know, like I've sat with 30, 40-year-olds that have never heard about boundaries, that have never even taken, a day to really think, do I have a bigger dream than just, doing what I've been doing, or do I even love myself? And I feel like we've been talking about that a lot more. It's like, how do we get to that, and it's like, it does start with making time for yourself, taking that time and just saying, yes, I love you all, and as a parent, it is hard, but being like, I need to love myself right now. And it is important. It's something that's like, it's critical, it is that time and beginning to build that confidence little by little by little, because it's going to take time.
Absolutely.
I mean, it took me, I'm 52 years old, and I'm just now starting to learn how to take care of myself and love
that
myself.
is okay.
Yeah.
No, right.
Yeah.
At any point in time.
Yeah.
But even to like back to what you were saying about parents, like when I was 14, like I'm the baby of 7 kids. Why would, and that's why I don't have, well, he passed away 4 years ago, my dad, but he would only beat me. And at the age of like around 12 and 13, I think at the age of 12, I finally stood up to him. But it took me 2 years to like leave. But I was like, why am I the only one being beat? He adored my brothers and sisters, never touched them. Wow. And I was like, why? Like, what did I do? Right? Like, why me? Like, what am I doing wrong? And I think that's what always gave me that.
That is a hard question.
Like,
I just started questioning that the other day. In full transparency here, I had a conversation with my siblings about this, and I told them, hey, I'm going to go on a podcast and I'm going to talk about this. And their story is my story. We share the same story. And I asked them, I was like, what are your thoughts? Mm-hmm. And right off the bat, like they told me without me saying, like, did you ever consider this to be child abuse? And it's so interesting. We all got into very similar lines of work. One is a psychologist, one is she works at DCFS. She's a social worker. So we have like very similar lines of work, and they work with children, and they of course all agreed. And it was just so interesting. They remembered things that I didn't. Mm-hmm. And they were like, you had it worse. Wow. But my brain blocked all that.
Wow.
I don't remember those things. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, yeah. And I didn't question it. I was like, well, if you're telling me that this happened, I know it happened.
Right.
Because
see, you know it's crazy. When my dad passed away, and I made peace with him. Like, he was in the hospital for 3 months before he passed away, and I made peace with him for myself, right? But those 3 months, me and my younger sister was talking to him, and he took a lot of family secrets to the grave with him. Like, he would just not, and I was even asking him, like, why, and he died. But it was crazy about it is, because I'm the baby of 7, when it came time to finally take him off the life support, like, none of my brothers and sisters would do it. So, like, I did it. Like, it was crazy, because I literally argued with my older brother, like, that night. Because he was like, Mike, how can you do that? We all know you hated Dad, but how can you just like, yeah, unplug it? And like, I know it seemed like that. Like, when the doctor came in, I was like, okay, yeah, unplug it. You know what I mean? But it wasn't out of anger or something. It was like, because I know my dad. Like, one, he was a Navy vet. No, I'm sorry, Air Force. And he wouldn't have wanted to been on those machines. 100%. Like, he was one of those men, like, he didn't believe in it. And I was like, dude, he wouldn't have wanted to been on this. Mm-hmm. Only reason why he is because of my sisters. They wanted him around more. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, my point to that is that that night, my only person that ever had, like, my back and was on my side was my youngest sister, and that's why me and her are close to this day. But my older brother and other sisters like, Mike, why did you hate Dad so much? And my youngest sister was like, dude, don't y'all remember how he used to beat Mike and what he put Mike through? And they all was so in denial because it was normal to them. They were like, oh, no, we didn't. Wow. And she was like, you guys are so fucking pathetic. Like, you guys still don't even realize that. I mean, you question why he hated him?
Yeah, and to kind of...
Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, to kind of circle back to what you were saying, and now what you're saying, too, is, like, we really have to... be stern in our truth, right. And it's like, just because you're belittling, what I'm saying or what I'm feeling, I'm not going to allow you to take away, like, my truth, my story, my feelings, my pain. Right. And so that takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of self-talk, and it takes, awareness to just know, You can't just believe what everybody says, even if it's a book, even if they're, you know, a doctor, a therapist, you know, not everybody's going to give you perfect advice either. Not everything's going to work for you. Somebody could have their own, you know, company, but it doesn't mean that you're, you know, less of what you are or what you're feeling. So.
And I think that holds true in all forms of trauma. And I think that's why it was so important, like for us to do this event and make sure that the survivors that did talk and share their story, that you know, we wanted them to know, like, it's okay to share your story. We want to hear your truth, and it's okay to share your truth. Yeah. And there is nothing wrong with being transparent about where we all come from. We all come from different walks of life. And you know what? If there's one person that's in that room that may be potentially going through any form of abuse, we hope that they felt some kind of empowerment today to take action in their life.
Absolutely.
And to also give that disclaimer though, like, hey, maybe you shared a story one time with the wrong person, or maybe somebody said, oh, that's normal. Like, you know, your family, I don't know how it made you feel in those times, or maybe when you were younger, and maybe, I mean, I'm sure you had your moments where it was like, is it my fault? Was it my fault? Like, you know, you said, like, what did I do? You know, and it can really get to you. And so just letting people know, you know, and to listeners right now, if you do speak up and you feel like, you know, you're not being heard, or somebody's not really taking in what you're saying, like that doesn't mean that you should value your pain less. Like, you have a right to feel the way that you were feeling. And it's okay. And just don't let that stop you from speaking up and from your healing journey.
Right. And that's what, as I'm going to segue into our CAP class right now, because how they made me feel that day, they would definitely not practice in ACR, what we learned in, you know, active constructive responding. Like, no one besides my younger sister validated my feelings. Like, they all minimized it.
That's the worst thing you can do.
Right. Just minimize it. Even like with my last relationship, like when I told you I had that conversation with a friend that was trying to help me, and again, she was 100% right with everything she was saying, but she just wasn't present and listening to me. She was trying to help me, right, which I get and I appreciate, but she wasn't listening to me in the moment. Like, it's all about, you know, constructive responding. Like,
yeah, sometimes people don't know the right way to respond either. Sometimes we're like, we want to fix it too. We're like, oh, well, what can you do? What, or why didn't you do that? Or you know, and it's like, you don't know what 100%, you're never going to really know what it feels like to be the other person. Just listen and just believe them. And just, you know, if you don't have anything, like you said, constructive to say, maybe just don't say anything.
Exactly. But it's hard because we all care about people, right? And we want to help people, but and it's like you were saying, like it takes time to understand that. Like, now, me going through everything, I'm more of a listener every time someone's coming to me. Like, I'm not trying to help nobody anymore, because I had to learn that I'm not responsible for your happiness. Like, I'm gonna be here for you and support you. I'm gonna listen to you, but I'm not responsible. Like, you have to take accountability for your part in it. And now let's move forward and finding a solution.
And you know, we've been practicing in our conversations. We're like, well, what do you need? You know, or is there something that I can do? Like, you know, and just asking. And you know, I feel like that was so uncomfortable in the beginning for me.
Very uncomfortable for me.
Right?
I don't know. I feel like it's a societal thing. Like, you just naturally want to help, and then you just automatically want to have a solution to problems. And you're right. Sometimes just listening. I had a hard time when we first started CAP class, and when we learned ARC?
Yeah, ACR.
ACR.
Right.
Anyways, I had a hard time with that. I'm like, and so, you know, we had that practice. One of the things was just listen to someone and don't respond.
Right.
It took a lot out of me to not respond, and already in my head, I was already thinking like, oh, you can do this, you can do that.
Right.
And I was like, wait, I shouldn't even be saying that. Don't even think it.
Or trying to give them your story.
Yes.
Oh, well, I did this. You should do this. Like, oh, I've been through that same situation.
With that sometimes.
No, I do too.
I do too. I think that's all the time.
I tell them, I'm like, I know this isn't about me, but
oh, you say that to me all the time. Yeah. She's like, I know it ain't about me, but
just to let you know, like, I've been there. if that's going to make you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
If not, then pretend you
It's-
didn't hear it.
So let me ask you this. How did you feel when you were on the opposite end and somebody did that to you? Because I know when I was on the opposite end, I just, like, even with therapists, when you're speaking to therapists and they start talking about themselves, and I'm just like, really? I didn't come here for this.
Yeah. It makes me want to hang up.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm losing the connection.
Oh man, I had a great therapist then, because my therapist, he used to just sit there and just look at me. I'm like, are you gonna say anything?
Is that
Like-
great?
I don't like that either.
One of my therapists fell asleep in the middle of. I was like, her eyes looked closed, and I was like, and she's like, yes. Like,
I don't mean to laugh, but
so
that's wow.
no, to share my story with other people. You're gonna have horror stories with therapists, but do not give up, because I do have a good therapist now, but it did take a long time.
It's
It
sometimes
does take
it's
a
about
lot.
connecting with people.
Yeah, and a
Yeah.
lot of people are like, oh, I had a bad experience, so I never want to go again.
I've had somebody like
And
that
I'm
too.
like, but would it benefit you? Yeah, but I don't want to go through it again. I'm like, you
you just
don't-
got to find the right
Yeah.
one.
You gotta try.
so
Yeah.
take into consideration my story. I'm sure your story is not worse than mine.
Yeah.
My therapist is awesome now, because
Yeah.
in the beginning when I started going to therapy, I didn't understand when they would put the question back on you, and I'm like, you're supposed to fix me. I didn't understand that you're giving me the tools to help me navigate through it
Yeah.
myself.
But it's
so
your
I can
job to do
find
the
it.
work.
And I didn't understand it. I'm like, hey, I'm coming to you. I'm wanting you to fix it.
And then it's not a wand.
no,
It's not just
It is
going to be like
ongoing.
abracadabra, you're
This
fixed
is
now.
ugly. This is hurtful. It's dark.
That's why I
It
say
is.
I love my therapist. Like, he the one that gave me that book, the Bradshaw, about the family system.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, he was like, you need to read this book. And I was like, well, I did. And I was like, wow. I had a great therapist. And that was my first time too. So I was actually very blessed about that.
That's
It does
One of
get
the
hard.
lucky ones.
Yeah.
It just get really hard, especially like when they're doing the whole assessment. They're like, okay, tell me about your mom, your dad, your uncle, sister, stepdad. And it's just like almost every single relationship has a bad story with it. And so that part to like have to say it and, decompress and process it. Like that is hard. And so,
It's great. When my therapist first asked me about that, I was like, really? Because he wanted me to talk about my mom's situation. And I was like, dude, I done buried that a long time ago. He was like, it's still alive. It's like, it's not
It
dead.
is.
Just because you buried it, he said, it's not dead.
Still
and
there.
that's
So
how
we was
you-
like, we're going to talk about it.
And that's how you know
dormant.
that
Yeah.
it's not. Because
Right.
when you're not able to talk about it, that was something that I wanted to bring up. Sometimes, like, even if we do move away or we go to college or we don't see that person, it doesn't mean that it's fixed. And so it's really to that where you have to face it.
It'll come back up.
Yeah, it does.
Or you have to face that person.
Yep. It comes back.
And,
yeah.
you have to really process it and, work through it, write it out, because you can't just choose to, because it's still there.
Yeah, and in
So-
my situation, I did come back. I moved back in with my parents, but years later with my husband.
Oh,
So we had to navigate all of that. And I mean, now we're local, so yeah, and I see them all the time. But I mean, that took 12 years to figure out.
But
It does take
does
a while.
feelings ever go away? Like
That's hard.
as much as I like, even like with my suicidal thoughts, like, and I was talking to Jackie about this, like they never go away. Like,
they do, but then they come back,
right.
right?
Yeah, I mean, because I want to say I still have them, but I guess the feeling never goes away because it's just something. And I look at it now more as, okay, I got through it. It's kind of a reminder. If that makes sense.
I don't think feelings go away. I think they're there.
Yeah.
Maybe they're pushed down a little bit. Maybe things are going well.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily being brought up like reminders of things. But then there's going to be that one trigger. And I just had one the other
Right.
day. And it was actually right after we talked, Mike, because I called my sisters right after. And I was triggered. But I was laughing and crying at the same time because I didn't know how to process that one. And within like 30 minutes, I was fine again.
Right. So you struggled well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the triggers are going to be there. I think they're just, we just learned how to address them, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it depends.
Tamika, I want to hear from you about that. Like, because you're a survivor, like, are your like thoughts are still there, or
Like the trauma with
Yeah.
it, or the funny thing is, my abuser's mother reached out to me during the event, and there's a restraining order in place, and he would violate it all the time. And once I finally really put my foot down and said, if you do this again, this is what's going to happen. He went to the courts and tried to see if he can see the children, but he had his opportunity to try to see the kids, but wanted to spite me by not showing up and didn't realize you let it work in my favor. They saw who you really were, and so with him cutting off all support, she cut off support, and she basically said that she couldn't come around my kids because he's not allowed to. So I let that go because my kids felt that absence. And so she's called maybe twice in the last year, and I've ignored it because she triggers me. She watched a lot of the abuse. She was an abused woman herself. And the only reason she got out of her situation was the abuser left her. But it's sad for me to think, as old as she is, she still doesn't understand, because obviously her son watched her being abused, so he ended up turning into an abuser. Because when you're in that household, you could either go one or the other way. Either you're going to be abused or you're going to become the abuser. And he chose, because I don't think, I taking accountability too. He had a choice.
everybody has a choice, right?
But she doesn't see that. She still coddles him. She doesn't understand. It's like she
Enables.
blames me. How dare you protect you and your children? So it's like she's mad at me. And I find myself being so angry at her because I'm like, why couldn't you find the strength for yourself? You still have those goggles on where you don't see the problem. And with her having that mindset, I feel she helps enable him to stay in that mindset because you're not having those conversations with your son. So I was triggered today, and I was thinking, like, God, why'd you allow this to happen right before my event? And I had to talk myself out of getting out of that mindset because it triggered me. I wanted to respond. One of her things was, when are you going to let me talk to the kids? Because I've called twice, and you haven't let me talk to them. And I know he hasn't been around, but I'm still their grandma. And I want to say, where the hell have you been?
Right.
How dare you put him first? These are your grandkids. I thought grandmas, there's a special place for the grandkids, even over the kids. You hear that all the time. Like, I love my kids, but I love my grandkids.
Right.
So I always tell my kids, you are the best thing out of your father and me. And I was hoping that as a grandma, she would see that and never let what him and I go through affect her relationship with him. But unfortunately she did. I am still triggered at times. I have an issue with forgiving. Because whenever he would try to abuse her, I always defended her, even if that meant now the tables were going to turn on me. But I couldn't watch her as a mother be disrespected, so I always stood up to him. But I was mad because she didn't do it for me. She watched him punch me in the face, cock back, punch me in the face. And then she said, I didn't see anything.
Wow.
Because she knew she was a witness if I called the cops. So I can't let that go. I know I need to, and I'm being transparent. It's been 10 years since I've been out, but I always remember that. So I've always showed her respect because I was raised to respect my elders. But when she pisses me off, that's that thing that comes back, that ticking, like she was there.
But you did the right thing, and you're doing the best thing you can for you. Right?
I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm trying. I had my daughter ask me the other day, when can I see my dad? And I'm just like, I had to tell her, you have to trust me. And then she said, well, just because you don't trust him doesn't mean I can't. And it's so hard being a parent in this situation. I think I was telling you, Elvia, you want to do the rundown. You want to say exactly what happened. You want to say what I'm protecting you from. You want to say everything, but I will not trigger or hurt my kids because I know once they hear it from me, they will forever hate him. And I struggle because in a way I feel like I'm doing him a solid because I'm not telling his truth. But I have to love my kids bigger than wanting to offer revenge for him because I know my love for them is stronger than my dislike for his actions. Because I don't dislike him. I had to realize it's not, like I said, he grew up in that household, and yes, he did have a choice, but this man is flawed. Right. But I've also seen how his actions have now transpired in his life, and it's like, okay, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do karma because life will really come back around, and you have to do nothing. You just sit back and say, here I am telling my story. Yeah. At the end of the day, I got the last word. I'm up here advocating. What you said to me, I took that power back and I'm throwing it back, and it's helping other women and men get out of their situation. So you thought you silenced me. Yeah. You thought I was going to be that woman in the corner just beating myself up. No. I had a couple of hard years of really hurting, but
that's a tough thing to do, because I was in a similar situation, like with my dad, right? So with my first wife, I was married for 25 years, and we're strict good friends, right? And when my dad passed away, like I may have said this or something to the effect to where I didn't want my kids around him. But when he passed away, like, she came up to me and was like, "Hey, I got to tell you something." And I was like, "What?" She was like, "For years, I've been secretly taking the kids to visit him, and they've had a great time." And she was like, "I'm sorry, but I didn't tell you because I thought you was going to get upset." And I didn't get upset. I was like, I actually appreciated her because she saw something that I didn't. Because if she would have asked me, I would probably have said, "Oh, fuck no. I don't want him around him." Yeah. Right? But she saw something that I didn't, and I was glad that she was like a third party, so to speak, and she made a great decision. And she was like, "No, he's been great to them like all these years." And I was like, I appreciate that. One, I appreciate you telling me. And I said, I appreciate you taking them, because just because I had an issue with him, I didn't want to hold my kids from having a relationship with their granddad. Yeah. And I'm grateful that it actually turned out well, because he did do some stuff to my other brothers and sisters that dudes are blind to. And that's why in the beginning, I think I did express to her like, "Hey, I don't want my kids around him because I don't want him to manipulate them." But I think she navigated through it pretty well. And they said, and I even asked them, my daughter's 21 and my son's 26. And they was like, "No, we had a great relationship with granddad." Good. I was like, but that is hard because we want to protect our kids, right?
Yeah, and so yours is a different. Sorry, I was just gonna say it's a different situation. Plus, you said he had his opportunity, and so now all of a sudden,
so like me exiting my relationship was the abuse had trickled down to my children, and it was like, all right, I had to get out. So if it was just me, then it would be, you can have those supervised visits. If it was just me, unfortunately, it trickled down to our children, where now it's like, all right, I have to protect them until they're able to use their brains and know how to get out of this situation if something was to happen. I don't know if I can take that, knowing I allowed them in his space, and if something, my heart cannot take that type of, I can't carry that. I already carry the burden of knowing what I've put them through while I was in that situation. And so we're coming up on the restraining order coming to an end next year. And I'm in, like, my therapist is like, go. But now after having that conversation with my daughter, I'm like, what do I do? So I'll be honest, I'm like, because I'm afraid that they're going to look at me like, you are the bad guy.
And how old is your daughter?
11 and 12.
Yeah, see, they're still young.
I mean, yes and no. And then it's like, you're out here in the community too, and you're advocating. Yeah. Who's to say that somebody's like, "Hey, I saw your mom, and she said," Yeah. And it is hard.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So I'm still working through that.
Yeah. Maybe having a third party talk, like not in for the visitation, but just talking with you guys about your options.
They've required him to do some stuff, and if he hasn't met what they're requiring, what the courts are requiring, then I know they're not gonna.
It is iffy. I feel you on that. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm like, I may not have to do anything if you haven't showed up for your kids to even try to get some type of help. If you're not in therapy, if you're not attending child parenting classes, if you're not if you're not doing any of the work that they required, then I don't have to do anything.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, hopefully he does change. We can only hope for the best.
Everybody, again, going back to choices. Right. Everybody has a choice to change. He has to want to change.
Right. Or accept that there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And it's gonna take time, though. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
So I want to jump into this CAP class real quick before we run out of time, because I want to. I'm not going to ask you. What is the biggest takeaway, Tamika and Elvia, that you guys got from the CAP class?
struggling well every day. For me, I've really been utilizing the tiny habits a lot more.
Okay.
I started off strong, and then there was maybe like a 2-month period where I didn't do a single one of them. And I struggled just with, I try to do it for like water intake I try to do all kinds of things.
The easy stuff.
Yeah, the easy stuff. But then I started
That's
getting
a
into
struggle
the
for
tough.
some of us.
Yeah.
Water.
Then I started getting into the tougher stuff. And lately it's been stress after stress, and I feel like it's a lot that's been going on. Some days I handle it very well. Other days I just cry all day. All the month of September, I cried every single day. I don't know what was going on. But I told myself, hey, I made it through the day, and tomorrow's going to be a new day.
There you go.
So
That's
I better
struggling
just
well.
keep going.
That's struggling well.
That made me feel a little bit better, to be
Yeah.
honest with you,
Yeah.
because I've had my month, right?
You
It's been
did.
like a couple weeks, maybe. Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. A couple people have been telling me, like, I don't know, there's something weird
Yeah.
going on. Like, I was crying all week, and I'm like, girl, I cried all month. And
No.
there were some days where I just cried out of nowhere
Really, yeah.
for no reason at all. And then I just felt the burden of everything that I've been going through. So for me, the tiny habits, and then also the strengths. I really have been just looking at them and like just trying to really believe them.
That
The
part.
top 5, I was like, I was shocked to see which ones were my top 5. I'm like, really?
What are they?
These were it? Gosh, you're putting me on the spot. There's gratitude, spirituality, fairness, justice, and one other one, the one I never remember.
I know. There's always one I can't remember, too.
And for some reason, all those, I was like, there's no way.
I see it.
And
100%. I see
Yeah,
that
you
in
see
you.
it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I struggle seeing mine.
I mean, nobody knows you better than yourself.
Right.
Well, I would hope so.
But-
I don't see any of those. So
Yeah.
I've been like really like I have them
Accepting
printed.
it.
I have them in my office.
Yeah.
I have them on my desktop at home, and I'll look at them like, no,
But you know
start
what?
believing these things.
That's probably like with me, right? When people are always giving me compliments, like it's hard for me to take compliments.
Me
You
too.
know
It
this,
is.
right?
Me too.
Like honestly,
It's
what
hard for me, too.
she gets on me about, I still haven't read all those things that people put on my back.
Oh,
Still
I
haven't read it.
still
I
haven't
have it
read
in my
them.
journal. I haven't.
Why?
You haven't read
Because
it? I read
I'm
it
gonna
that
get
day.
so emotional. Like if this is what people feel about me, because I know it's all positive and great, and,
Yeah.
and it's hard for me to accept that. Like I don't see it. Like just how you like we
Yeah.
don't see those type. I don't see it. I have it on my desk.
I see a
And
tiny
I-
habit there.
I
Yeah.
want
See?
I want to.
Yes.
I want to, and I will one day. Oh, I will
I
one
feel
day.
like I'm just like starting to, because I was really cornered into a situation where I was like, I need to do this for my mental well-being. Like it was that, when you were talking about like, does that feeling really go away? And I feel like for me, sometimes it does, like the depression and the, like, just want to give up and throw the towel in, days. And it was really like that. I looked at myself and it was like, I need to do this for me.
Yeah.
There's nobody else. I can't fix anybody. That person, I can't abracadabra them and make them be nice to me or make this situation better. Like I need to do what I can for me, for myself, because if not, I cannot. And so it did take me I'm like, I can't be all bad.
Right.
There's some good. So it started with like the little tiny things. And then the other thing that I mentioned was like, like that person is probably not saying they're 100. It's not 100% correct. Like, is it true? And I really started to ask myself, like, is that person, what about that person and that, abuser, or that this person or this negative person that I have to deal with. And so when I started to do that, it really helped so much. But yeah, I would say that it does feel really good, and I mean, I'm not going to say like every single compliment and all the time, but I'm just starting. So it's possible.
Yeah.
It does
I will
take
say,
time.
when I started this class and when Lewis talked about like this class being very raw and that we were going to feel all kinds of emotions, I didn't believe him.
I didn't
like,
either.
I'm not gonna feel it.
I didn't
I'm
either.
gonna be fine. I don't have any issues.
I had a whole different perspective. I really did. My whole perspective changed.
Yeah.
But I went. It's crazy because me and Nardi was talking about this on when she was on the show. This class is really like therapy. Like
Yes.
it brought out so much stuff that I was like, oh my God, I'm going back to therapy again.
Hard.
And I think that's what happened to me. I think I got
Yeah.
a super delayed response where out of nowhere, and maybe it was because it was towards the last class that we had all together, and knowing that we're not going to see each other unless we're out in the public or we
Right.
like schedule something until December, that I started feeling all these emotions. And I had people like coming and asking me like, girl, you okay? Like, what's going on? Like, we've never seen you like this. And people that like, they've known me for years and they're like, we have never seen you like this.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't even know what to tell
Like,
you.
I don't have my therapy anymore.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know what happened. But I think that it was just an overwhelming like amount of emotions that were all coming in that probably I've been pushing as much far back as I could on the I don't know, what is it, the back burner.
Yeah.
Right.
And they just started flooding. Yeah.
And that's when it's the hardest, when you like realize it and you have to like confront it. Whew, that's probably why. Yeah, it's really hard.
So Tamiko, what about you? What's your biggest takeaway?
That it is okay to not be okay some days. I think we have this mindset that every day has to be roses, and then they say glitter and roses or rainbows or something like that. And it's okay to have those moments where you're not okay, just as long as you are able to pull it back in.
Right.
So that is that is where my mindset is. And just to touch back on what you're saying, I feel like I've had the deepest in 2021. My mental health was at its worst, where I actually had those suicidal thoughts. And sometimes they may come up, and I get extremely scared because when that voice started becoming louder than why I wanted to be here, it scares me. So it's like PTSD. Like I get scared to even think about getting back in that space because my fear is never having the same power to get out of it. So it's like it's traumatic for me. Like when I get to that point, it scares me I feel like it scares me straight, if that makes sense. Not to say that it's wrong to have those thoughts, but it scares me to where it's like, heck no, because girl, if you take it, if you let it get you that far, again, you may not get out of it.
You know, I the other night, like I was thinking last night, matter of fact, I was thinking those thoughts came back into my mind, but it was more of a, okay, I start to ask myself, what triggered this? Like what brought on this thought? What can I do? And I think it stemmed from your question. Like, is there something else you can do? Remember you asked me that yesterday. I was like, okay, is there
And you said, no.
Well, no, when she first asked me that, my first response was, no, it's just, I just got to go through the process. I just got to be patient and just go through the process. That's what my response was. But then when you asked me again later on, she's like, are you sure there's nothing you could like do, whatever? So then I started thinking, okay, is there something I could do? Then I started analyzing, okay, what brought me here? Maybe if I can go back to what brought me here, then I can answer that question. So I had to think back, okay, what triggered this?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
That's a
And
fantastic technique right there.
I got to the source. I was like, okay, I know what triggered this.
That's awesome.
And I was okay once I realized, okay, why or what triggered it, and what got me back to this thought. And then I was fine.
That's something that I touched with my therapist. We were talking about the triggering, you have one moment and then all the 10, the 15, the 20 situations come up.
Yes.
And so she mentioned, how fair is that to your current situation though? Because not everything's happening right now.
Wow.
So don't think about all the things that happen, because that's not like reality, and it's not fair to you right now because you're not dealing with the 20 situations anymore.
Right.
You're just dealing with the one.
That's behind you.
So that really was like my little aha moment, and that really helped. And I was like, you're right. I'm not going to put myself in that negative mindset and just think, and it's a perfect because of the event today where you subconsciously put yourself in the victim mindset. You know, you're like, poor me again, this situation, and maybe I deserve it, or maybe, you know, it was because of my choice, it's because of this, because of that. And it's like, it's not fair to you, you know? And so I know you didn't ask me this time, but what I took away from the class is really like self-care, like taking care of myself.
I didn't know what type of response you was gonna give me.
I didn't.
I mean, if you wanted to do another blooper reel, just say it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is the
By the way, I'm putting this on the social media.
it's the applied part. Is the really like taking the time for me 100%. Like, look, you know, not half doing it, half-assing it. You know, it's just it's just really like, and knowing and telling myself, and like I have to prime myself. You know how you have to prime kids? It's like, you know, when you're going through a difficult situation, you have to tell yourself, this is gonna be hard. You're gonna cry. It's gonna be maybe days, and you're gonna have to suck it up, you know. But let's face this and let's figure it out. And what can I do? Not like what can my, you know, whoever, like daughter, kid, mother, father, employer, you know, whatever do. It's about me.
You own it.
Yeah,
I like that.
that's my
Yes.
I like that. But you know, so the one thing I think, you know, everybody in our class have to understand, like, what we're going through right now. We're not going to be fixed right tomorrow or at the end of this class. Right. These are tools that we're supposed to take with us on our life journey. So even like with me, like I got this stuff like on my phone, on my computer. I keep that playbook. It looks big, right? It looks overwhelming.
Yeah, it's daunting.
But the great thing about it is, and this is what I do, is like whenever I go through a situation now, I take that situation and I actually go through the perma, like what I'm reading right now, like all the lessons and the tools that, you know, we learn through each pillar. I go and try to find the situation that I'm in now.
Wow.
And then I go back and I read it.
Like
so
that.
you kind of got to look at it as like a Bible,
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
right? Like I read my Bible a lot.
You really
like,
want to pass this class.
I know,
He's on track.
Hey.
He already passed on.
I'll be damn if I don't get a certificate. but seriously,
you
I mean,
you're right, 100%, 100%.
But I mean, we have to don't think like, and I think what I'm saying is like, don't think by the end of this class you have to know all this. I don't think that's what they're looking for either. They just want to know if you know the basics and are you applying it to your life. But these are just life tools that you take with you on your life journey.
right.
Like don't after December, don't put that book away.
Right.
Keep it somewhere handy because
100%.
it is gonna be.
It's an ongoing
Yes.
journey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ongoing.
Absolutely.
You're always
100%.
going to come across things or situations or people. And I think, you know, I've kind of been looking at life that way. It's like,
Right.
okay, this is a struggle that I'm
Right.
going through. You know, why did God put this in my path? And it helped, like my whole thing actually with life purpose, I guess you could say, is like we're here to work on our character. You know, it's like God made us whatever way we are, and we're here and we're faced with these things because we become the person that we want to be, you know, with our choices. So it's like this is the opportunity God's giving me to show my character. So am I going to step up or not? But if, like you said, and if you don't, hey, give yourself grace, you know, like you were going to mess up. We're not robots, you know, we're humans. And not enough people talk about it, you know, social media and all the perfect little pretty rainbows and butterflies.
That's
you know,
right.
it's not always like that.
No, and we're gonna always go through challenges and obstacles in life. I mean, just knowing that, but also knowing we're gonna get through it, just like we've gotten through everything else.
That's right.
That's why my response was, no, I'm just gonna be patient because I know I just got to go through the process.
And that's exactly what it is, a process.
This is going through the process, yeah. Knowing we're gonna be all right. And look how I was this morning.
You're like, huh? That was
Did
yesterday.
you learn a little bit more about
That was
yourself in
yesterday.
that process, though? Because it always is something.
Yes.
Something
Like,
that
did
you learn
you
in
learn?
that process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like, what can we do differently?
right. No, 100%. So what
What about you, Mike?
What?
Oh yes, your
What was your takeaway?
Yeah.
I've been talking about my takeaway. No, so my takeaway, my biggest takeaway was learning or asking myself, I should say, what went well. That's my favorite thing right now. Like at the end of the day, like even like last night when I was going through my thing, I asked myself, you know what went well today? And looking at the little small things, like I woke up, I was able to take a shower, I got clean clothes on.
Yes,
These little things adds up.
they do.
I really like
Builds
that
gratitude.
concept.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know,
absolutely. The gratitude, because sometimes
Yeah.
we get so fixated on everything that went wrong.
Yes.
Right.
And that list just keeps growing and
Like,
growing.
and it's only one thing that went wrong, right?
Right.
But we think it's so big. But when we start
Magnify
looking
it.
at the small things, it starts to overshadow that one little
right.
thing, and then you start looking, oh, that problem's not so big.
Yeah, I was doing a mixture, but I think it started leaning more towards the negative one. So I think I need to start leaning, going
No,
back to that.
And that's my biggest takeaway. I love that. Like Tanja actually got me into that. My accountability partner. Like
She's awesome.
She is. I mean, when I was going through my struggles 2 months ago, she would call me every day, and she wouldn't even say hi. She would just. I'd be like, hello. She'd be like, what went well today, Mike?
She's awesome.
Right? Every day she did that for like a few weeks until it finally stuck in my head. And I was like, damn, I love this.
That's awesome to have that kind of accountability.
Yeah,
partner.
no, she's amazing.
I
She's
know.
amazing. And she to this day, like, in fact, because we both commute every day to the valley. We're always talking to each other on the phone. We're on the freeway.
Awesome.
Like we're always passing each other, and not even knowing it. But she always asks. That's one of her questions she asks me, like on a regular now. Like, what went well today?
That's a good one.
No, it is. So I live by that now,
That's awesome.
and it does help. Even if I got to repeat it, like the having on clean clothes, I had a nice bed to sleep in, like because all that could be taken away in a day, in a
Right.
moment.
Absolutely.
So every day I'm grateful for it.
Yes.
Right? Like, so I repeat it every day. Sometimes I repeat everything, the shower, the clothes, the food, everything. I'm grateful for
take it
this
for
this
granted.
room, the studio. Like,
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, there was one that we did in class, I think was the 3. It was the past. So that's the one that I've been doing, the past,
Oh.
the present, the future.
Yeah.
That one works. Like, it helps a lot too, because it's like, you can apply it to a past struggle, something you overcame. And so like, I love that because it reminds me what, the challenges that I did overcome. But I feel like the future ones was kind of getting a little bit to me because I was like, when's that going to come? So you get a little bit of impatient sometimes, but it is nice to have that goal.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
so what do you ladies want to leave us with? Like, what's next for Valley Oasis or your next event? I know you're still on a high from earlier, but you got to keep the momentum going.
I already told the community partners that we will make a schedule we will put it on the calendar to have another meeting and try to plan something in the next quarter to see what we can do collectively this time. So I'm hoping for a community event, whether it's a bunch of different webinars. I don't know what it looks like yet, but once we all get in a room to kind of collaborate, I'm excited to see what's going to come of it because it's going to be something that Antelope Valley hasn't seen yet.
You know what
believe that.
You know what you should do, and I don't know if you are going to do this or not, but it's something that I learned when I was in entertainment. I was a film producer for 25 years or 30 some years, but my executive taught me this because I used to be the live show producer. I used to do events and travel the world doing events, right? And he always told me after an event, he was like, either the next day we're going to get on the phone or we're going to have a meeting because while the event is still fresh in your head, you want to go through, okay, what went well, what didn't. So we have these notes while they're fresh in your head because if we have a meeting next week about this event, you're going to forget some stuff. Right. So take your community leaders or a few people and have a meeting within the next couple of days and say, okay, what went well, what didn't. So we now have notes. So when we do our next event, we can refer back to that.
Nice.
Ooh, and a weekend one too.
Yeah.
Would be good.
Yeah.
Because that's how you keep momentum going and you scale your events and
Or
you scale
evening.
the situations or whatever it may be. Yeah.
What about like maybe at the fair, like places where people are already going to be at or something?
Reminded me of Lewis with that.
Yeah,
And that could be something.
Yeah.
You're right.
yeah.
That could be something.
I'm always thinking about Martin Luther King.
So what about you?
You know, I'm really big on collaboration
You
and
are.
education. I really do see this overseeing the domestic violence regional coordination role. I think it's important that we do get community partners to be at the table where their voices can be heard, but also have the voices of survivors at the table. I've been working on this very unique project where we have young people at the table, and I think it would be amazing to kind of have something very similar in this aspect
I like
with
that.
Love that.
lived experience, and really make it a collaborative. I mean, it can really grow exponentially. And one of the things that when I presented today, I talked about the highlights of the successes that have happened this year through the DVRC role that Termico has held now officially for a year. And one of the big exciting things that happened this year was we did a child abuse awareness webinar in April that blew up. And DCFS requested to have a part 2 with us and invite people. And there was a conversation to have a town hall, a third part that we never got around to. I think it would be amazing to do something like that this upcoming year. And then we also did the Human Trafficking 101 training. That led to a lot of collaboration this year, collaborations that I don't think we ever thought of.
No.
And so I think, you know what, there's a great opportunity here for collaboration, more education that can be happening in the schools. Termico's infographics have been getting around to the campuses. So we know that it's getting around to the students, our Antelope Valley students. And so I think the more that we get that information, the more awareness we can bring to our community, starting with our kids, our
And you
children.
know what? What I love about that is that, and I've been talking to a few people about this, is that we expect our kids to do all the stuff we're talking about, but if we don't involve them or expose them to it, how do
Yes.
we expect them to,
You're right.
like with mental health,
Yeah.
positive psychology, if we don't involve them or go and teach them these workshops or anything, how do we expect them to know this stuff?
Yeah, because then it will stop with us.
Right?
Yeah.
So we have to, I love that.
Yeah, so all these are just ideas that have been, that Termico and I have talked about. I think after today's success, and I do say it's a success, we had so many community partners at this event today. And I mean, we talked about, hey, if we do this again next year, we know that this is going to be a lot bigger than what it
absolutely.
was today. So,
100%.
we
Yeah.
just gotta wait and see and plan, and I'm excited for the collaboration and for the expansion that's gonna be happening.
Yes.
And just having Termico in this role has been absolutely amazing to see the growth there.
Well, thank you, ladies. I don't know if you guys know this, but you guys made a huge impact today with what
Thank
you
you.
guys did.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing your story. And I feel like that really makes a difference. And just knowing, and like how you weren't aware of your situation, and there could be other kids going through that. And so I do see like it is very much needed, and it is going to make you guys made a big impact, and I know you're going to continue to. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
You want to read your thing?
Oh,
The floor is all yours. Spotlight.
So October marks Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And this year, the Alliance for Gun Responsibility, an activist organization looking to educate people on the dangers of the lack of gun safety, are focusing their efforts on an imperative yet often overlooked dimension of domestic violence. It's lethal interconnection with gun violence. Both domestic violence, commonly referred to as intimate partner violence, and gun violence are pressing public health crises that reverberate through our communities. Equally concerning is the role firearms play, which contributes to 50% of these incidents. And so they're impacting marginalized and silenced communities. We'd like you to better understand this complex relationship and just do, your research, educate yourself on gun safety, keeping guns locked and ammo separately, and also just knowing being aware of those red flags. And if you're in a home with a gun owner, knowing your rights. Also, we didn't really touch too much on the topic, but Valley Oasis, domestic violence, and it is a shelter. So I feel like often it's interrelated, because when you're in a relationship and then you're fleeing, you don't have anywhere to go. Absolutely. And so making sure you're also have a signed agreement, and knowing that you're on the lease. If you're a woman, if you are abused, that other person has to leave. You get your restraining order, like Termiko was saying, and just educate yourself on the critical dynamics that this situation what happens, what occurs, what it can lead to. Right. So let's louden the fact that there is a lack of education in our community on these topics. Follow us on Instagram, on Spotify, on our social media. Share, like, comment on our resources and discussions related to domestic violence to raise awareness. And thank you so much for tuning in.
Yes. Where can anyone reach out to Valley Oasis? Like Absolutely. Contact information, any type of resources you want to?
Absolutely. So my email is tcoplin@avdvc.org, and my phone number is 661-483-0446. I am just a phone call away. If you need any assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out, especially in regards to our survivors.
Thank you so
much
for that.
And also our domestic violence hotline number. We will get that number and we can share it on social media.
Pull it up. I got it. 661. No, that's okay. 661-945-6736. That is our DV hotline.
Awesome. He can clean that out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's the only part I'm going to edit.
Please do.
All right, we out of here, you guys. Thank you again, ladies. I truly appreciate you, and I truly appreciate the impact that you guys are making in our community with domestic violence and with the survivors.
Thank you for having us. Table.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you to all of you. Mike, too, for your vulnerability.
Mike. Yes.
And
how am I the only one in the room
for
that
having
cried?
the space. I've
been crying back earlier.
I could see it in there.
Yeah, we've been crying.
Look, I cried it yesterday so that I wouldn't cry today.
And you were so strong for your vulnerability. Thank you, Mike.
Yes.
I'm excited to see where this goes, because now I'm going to call you.
Yes.
Put you on the spot. You have a voice that needs to be heard.
Oh, thank you.
And so, we hope that everybody enjoyed, the resources, the tools, and the things that we talked about. Share with anybody that you feel like might be struggling, that just needs more education or just needs somebody to talk to. And yes.
All right. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you.
All right, we out of here, you guys.